So how does this work in practice? How do we utilize the search engines? What is it that we should be looking at and what can we engage? So if we go to a basic search engine, such as Google, and it's certainly the most populous, most people are more inclined, and again, personal preference, but Google is pretty much king in this space. You can search a variety of terms and elements. Names, for example. Many headhunters now in senior executive positions, if they can't find people and they don't have a digital footprint, a digital shadow, or worst case, digital dirt, they simply don't engage them, or they're not viable for senior executive positions because they can become suspicious, or the headhunters themselves will move on to someone who is at least more prominent. No one knows who the world's best psychologist is, but most people know who Dr. Phil is. The reality is that without a profile, without a digital image, then it's questionable as to how popular or influential you may be in certain key positions. You can also do this in groups. So this can be a powerful tool for individuals, for groups, but also for the collection of evidence and information. So for those that are doing due diligence on business partners or individuals and so on, search engines themselves can be a great tool for divining or extracting this type of information, provided you implement a couple of key caveats, or you search in a more professional and systematic manner, simply rather than typing in random names and companies and so on. The other thing too is it can help you, and we'll get into this a little bit further, it can help you then pick up breadcrumbs. It can help you determine the validity, whether this company's been around for 10 minutes or for 10 years, whether the individual didn't exist 5 minutes ago or for the last 50 years they've been an expert in their field. This is, again, becoming far more transparent and verifiable through the search engines and the business intelligence processes. Google search is where a lot of these things should first start. One of the tips and tricks of the process is that using this particular code, you substitute domain for whatever the company or the website is that you're looking for. Put the star or the multiply sign at the beginning, and you can, in some instances, now remembering at the time of this recording, things change, but this then generates a list and extracts a whole bunch of email addresses associated to that particular domain. Again, it can be a great way for ground truthing or extracting points of contact and validating individuals. This is what a number of marketers use when they extract and harvest information from the internet, and they develop mailing lists and contact lists and so on, is that they use this and a number of other of their own algorithm and search processes to extract key content or more specific elements from a single search. Likewise, if you extract the URL or the website web address and put it in inverted commas or in quotation marks and type it in, you'll get a very targeted search which identifies what's called backlinks. So the backlink elements is where that particular domain, not necessarily the anchor text, which is that blue hyperlinked element, but the backlink, you can then find the networks and relationships and even popularity of some of these websites. So the website itself, if it only has one or two of these backlinks or sources, then you can start to be questionable. If it only has a lifespan over the last 2 to 3 months, which again you can start to question why there's not a longer timeline associated with this particular website. And it's also a good way of identifying where it is people are talking about yourself, whether it be you, your website, your company's website, your department's website. Where exactly is it found around the internet? Is it being found in questionable locations, illegal sites, blogs, forums, and a whole bunch of other things? Where is it that you're being referenced? This is also a good insight to oneself as well as anyone that you're trying to gather or collect a picture on. And Google search obviously is the basis of this process. Doing this simple search by putting site : and then the name.com, whatever the website may be, it then gives you an insight into how many pages that particular site has. So again, this is also a key criteria when it comes to internet marketing and social media authority, is how big and powerful is this particular site. If they come back and they only have 1 or 2 pages, then again, you've got to question, is this a fly-by-night, or are they just a poor marketing organization? Are they a historical website? Or if they come back with tens of thousands of pages like a Wikipedia or something like that, then you know what, then you can probably consider them what's known as an authority site. And they're large and they're respected and they've been around for a while. and lots of people are linking to it. But as I said, if you've got any less than sort of 3 or 4, maybe it's just a flash site. Maybe it's just been put up as a landing page or a catch-all or a poor marketing attempt. You need to ask a few more questions based on that. Or do they appear in multiple languages? You know, these sorts of things can give you an understanding of the diversity and the breadth of the organisation based on their digital footprint or their shadow in which they cast on the internet. So by using these particular search terms, what we find is you can have very broad results. So let's look at something like terrorism. So in point 1, we've put in terrorism. Point 2, you'll see Wikipedia comes back as the #1 search. Now, any search results that come back with results such as this, it's typically an indicator that it's a poorly targeted area by markets or corporations, because Google and everyone else is in the business of matching solutions with questions, and because there's no commercial reference there, or there's no one marketing in that particular space, there's either no traffic searching for it, or people just don't know that, you know, people are looking for terrorism and they could place their piece of information there, and they just don't know how to go about it. Point 3 is instant, where visually you're taken to. Halfway down the page is all of the images and pictures. Now, whilst some of them may be, you know, the regular photos or the more controversial ones that have appeared over the last couple of decades, the reality is the eye is drawn to these particular images. Now, increasingly, the internet, Google and everyone else is bringing back universal search, which means there's a combination of websites, images, videos, and so on. But anything that has videos and images on it is instantly where individuals and searchers are drawn through naturally, and plenty of research around heat maps and you know, the visual acuity of these sorts of images is more likely where people are going to look. So again, it can be an insight as to where most likely someone's going to go if you get these sorts of results. 4, now there's multiple categories in which the search terms come back. Very few people, with the exception of people like us, tend to explore and look at this. So you've got everything from images in that category, maps, videos, news, shopping, books, blogs, and so much more. And you can get much different results from looking in each of these particular categories. So again, so if you're researching or analysing, it behoves you not to just look at the everything listings, but also drill down into some of the subcategories. Spot 5 is you can change your location to pretty much anywhere in the world. Now, depending on the proxies and all those sorts of things that you may have in place, anonymous web surfing and so on, but you can put your location, and your location will also bring back different results based on your proximity, advertising, keywords, and a whole bunch of other things. So 6 is much the same point. Depending on your location and the country of origin and a whole bunch of other things, it can determine the outcome of these particular searches. So don't assume or think that you're sitting in one location and somewhere halfway around the world are getting exactly the same results, because it's simply not true. Point 7, again, we can analyse the timelines from within the last hour to the last year. And again, this is a great insight as to what's trending, what's popular, what are the key concerns, or what are the most authoritative considered sites based on these particular terms. Now, number 9, and brilliantly, we've got 2 number 9s. If we look at the number 9 at the top, in the search underneath number 1, we'll see about 120 million results. So again, that's a phenomenal amount of information that nobody's ever likely to read, and this is why less than somewhere between 2 and 5% of people even bother to go past the first page. So the reality is, if you're drilling down to the 5th, the 6th and the 10th page, very few other people actually are. So most of the most relevant information typically presides on the first 2 pages, but it's also a litmus test for yourself that if what you're trying to communicate isn't on the first couple of pages, then you know what, it's a better than average chance that very few people outside of your network are going to find it. Looking at the second number 9, which is towards the bottom of the page, which is next to terrorism.com, it's important to note that in all of these listings where that keyword presides, the keyword's in the website address, it's in the description, in the URL, the blue text, which is the anchor text. It's also in the descriptive element of the website itself, in the metadata. You know, it's that little paragraph that typically appears or should appear in most of these web search terms. Now again, depending on how you're targeting or how it's been configured, this may skew the results. And some of the results here are many years old, but because they've done all of the things right and they've conformed with the mathematical algorithm that's associated with search engines, they've come out on the first page. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the freshest or most accurate piece of information. So bear that in mind when you're scraping some of this information or when you're using tools that scrape the information as well. Social media is actually a big animal, much more than most people actually think. It's a culmination of a number of things. It can be online, internet, blogs, viral networking, and so on. So it's no one thing, it's no one tool, it's no one channel, it's no piece of content. And this is where a lot of people either overlook. They're exclusively focused on the media content, they're focused on tweets, they're focused on the networking, the marketing. It's actually much broader and more encompassing than what most people think. So as a result, it's important to understand, and we'll talk about, is some of the diversity or things that you also need to cover as part of your process. Google has done an excellent job, not surprisingly, in segmenting a number of these areas. So you can actually search within key areas, whether it be videos, whether it be scholastic elements. It can also be things like blogs. And given that 80 to 90% of the content that is being created on the internet on a daily basis, and certainly the most fresh and updated elements, is often in blogs, these web logs, that individuals create themselves or organizations, and any new and modern website, if you don't have a blog, then you will be punished for it. But the reality is that you can search within blogs, and these areas alone can be a rich source of information and content and insight. And certainly from a defensive perspective, organizations need to be aware and understand what's being said about them or what their employees are saying in these platforms as well. So if we look at something like Facebook as well, which is also part of the content, Facebook, YouTube, and Google are the three largest networks online, particularly when it comes to search engine or finding information. So you need to be able to search or understand what's also found in some of these controlled social networks. And what I mean by that is increasingly, for one reason or another, a lot of these entities that were previously bedfellows at one stage have grown apart or had fallings out. So what they do is they lock down and protect their particular networks, which means that their results don't come up in search engines, or they're not universally indexed, and so on and so forth. So Facebook is very much standalone. It contains its own information that many of the Google searches won't come up with. So it's important to have an account. It's important because you have to have an account to get access to it. It's important to be able to navigate and have a look around in Facebook because it's one of the second and third largest search engines in its own right. So again, there can be things on people, contents, products, situations, social agreeances, communities, all sorts of things that you need to actually go in and harvest some of these information specifically just from Facebook. Likewise with YouTube, as I said, YouTube, Facebook, and Google are the three largest search engines. You need to go in and identify and have a look at what things are available because they may not appear in the broader search terms. Well, although YouTube is owned by Google, the reality is that depending on where it's indexed or how popular or what's being driven, you can have a very informative or damaging video that's buried beyond the first or second page, but it's all about you and it's all about something that you would either rather keep private or something that could particularly influence your organization in a positive or a negative way. So it's important to understand and know both perspectives. And you can do this both in a standard sort of naked search, that is, just typing in a keyword, and all of these features also have advanced search elements. So again, harness and utilize them and have this as part of your methodology before you form an opinion, before you form an assessment. You need to be able to canvas, and increasingly most people will prefer videos above written content. So for things like tutorials, how to do, informative reviews, most people would rather watch a 2 to 5 minute video than read a 500 to 1500 word article. And this also goes the flip side for organizations who are preparing content, is that this needs to be one of your channels for distribution as well as your ability to monitor and defend against it.